Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a jaw-dropping tale of love, betrayal, and a woman's fierce fight to reclaim her soul. Picture this: a dazzling penthouse in Los Angeles, a millionaire husband with a wandering heart, and a wife who's about to turn the tables in the most stunning way. Trust me, you won't want to miss a single second. Stick around to see how this story ignites. Hit that like button and let's get started. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the Los Angeles skyline with strokes of fiery orange and velvet purple. From the floor-to-ceiling windows of her sleek penthouse, Emily Carter gazed out, her hazel eyes tracing the twinkling city lights. At 32, she should have felt on top of the world. Married to Ethan Brooks, a 38-year-old tech mogul whose empire dominated Silicon Beach, their life glittered with promise. A sprawling home perched in the Hollywood Hills, invitations to star-studded galas, and a love story that once felt like a masterpiece. But lately, that masterpiece had crumbled into a haunting sketch of neglect, and Emily's heart ached with every jagged line. 10 years ago, Emily had been a rising artist, her canvases bursting with bold colors and wild dreams, each stroke a whisper of her untamed spirit. Ethan, then a scrappy entrepreneur with tousled dark hair and a disarming grin, had swept her off her feet at an art gallery opening. He'd whispered promises of a future where her creativity could soar, supported by his ambition. Together, they'd built something extraordinary. Or so she thought. Now, the penthouse felt less like a haven and more like a gilded cage, its sleek marble floors echoing with a chilling emptiness. Ethan had changed. The man who once spun her around their tiny apartment in joy, after landing his first big deal, was gone. Success had sharpened his edges, turning him into a polished figure who thrived in boardrooms and late-night meetings. His warm hazel eyes, once locked on her, now darted elsewhere, often toward Sasha Vega, his 28-year-old personal assistant. Sasha strutted into their lives a year ago, all sleek confidence and predatory charm, her jet-black hair cascading like a waterfall over tailored blazers. She'd clawed her way up from a struggling startup intern, fueled by a hunger to escape her past, a childhood of hand-me-downs and broken promises. To Sasha, Ethan wasn't just a boss. He was her ticket to the top, and Emily was merely an obstacle. Emily stood in the living room, her bare feet sinking into the plush white rug. She wore a faded, oversized sweater, its sleeves frayed from restless tugging, and her chestnut hair hung in a messy bun. Once, she'd been the woman who turned heads with her vibrant energy and effortless style, her art a mirror to her soul, vivid and fearless. Now she barely recognized the tired reflection staring back from the mirrored wall. Dark circles framed her eyes, a testament to sleepless nights spent wondering where it all went wrong. Had she let herself fade? Or had Ethan's indifference snuffed out her spark? Tonight, the penthouse buzzed with an unfamiliar energy. Ethan was home early, a rarity that prickled Emily's nerves. She heard his deep voice drifting from the study, punctuated by Sasha's lilting replies. Curiosity tugged at her, sharp and insistent, pulling her toward the half-open door. She tiptoed closer, her breath catching as she peered through the gap. Ethan leaned against his mahogany desk, a glass of bourbon in hand, his tie loosened in that casual way that once made her heart race. Sasha perched on the edge of a leather chair, her crimson lips curling into a smirk as she tossed her hair. "We're so close, Ethan," Sasha purred, her voice dripping with honeyed ambition. "Once we secure the funds, this project will skyrocket. You'll be untouchable." Ethan chuckled, a sound that sent a shiver down Emily's spine. Not of delight, but dread. "It's a gamble, Sasha, but you're right. We just need to move fast." Emily's stomach twisted. What project? Ethan hadn't mentioned anything to her, not a whisper about new ventures. Their marriage had become a hollow shell of late-night excuses and curt goodbyes, but this secrecy felt different, darker. She pressed her trembling hand against the wall, straining to hear more, when Sasha's next words pierced her like a dagger. "And Emily's inheritance. It's the perfect piece. She won't even notice until it's done. The room spun. Her inheritance? The trust fund her late father had left her? A sacred piece of her past she'd guarded fiercely? Ethan knew it was untouchable, a lifeline she'd clung to when his wealth overshadowed her dreams. Her pulse thundered in her ears, rage and betrayal colliding in a fiery storm within her chest. This wasn't just an affair, it was a calculated theft. A betrayal so deep it shattered the fragile trust she'd been clutching. Emily stumbled back, her breath ragged, tears stinging her eyes. She wanted to scream, to storm in and confront them, but her legs felt like lead. Instead, she fled to the bedroom, collapsing onto the silk sheets, her mind racing. Ethan wasn't just straying. He was plotting to strip her bare, to erase the last shred of her independence. And Sasha? She was the spark igniting this betrayal, her greedy fingers clawing at Emily's life. As the city lights flickered outside, Emily's despair hardened into something fierce. Resolve. She wouldn't crumble. She wouldn't let them win. Wiping her tears, she whispered to the empty room, "You've underestimated me, Ethan, but not for long." The fight was just beginning. The penthouse was silent now, save for the faint hum of the city pulsing beyond the glass walls. Emily Carter sat cross-legged on the hardwood floor of her art studio, a forgotten corner of their lavish home, its shelves cluttered with dusty paint tubes and half-finished canvases. The air smelled faintly of turpentine, a scent that once ignited her soul, but now mocked her stagnation. Her hands trembled as she clutched her phone, the screen glowing with a single text she'd sent to Mia Torres, her best friend since their wild college days at UCLA. "I need you. Now." Ethan's words looped in her mind like a relentless drumbeat. Emily's inheritance. It's the perfect piece. Sasha's smug assurance twisted the knife deeper. She won't even notice. Every syllable fueled the inferno raging in her chest. Anger, yes, but also a bone-deep hurt that clawed at her core. How had she let it come to this? How had the man who'd once vowed to protect her dreams morphed into a thief plotting to plunder her last sanctuary? The doorbell chimed, sharp and insistent, snapping Emily from her spiraling thoughts. She stumbled to her feet, smoothing her rumpled sweater as she opened the door. Mia stood there, her curly auburn hair wild from the LA wind, her brown eyes blazing with concern. At 33, Mia was a freelance journalist with a knack for sniffing out secrets and a loyalty to Emily that ran deeper than the Pacific. "Em, what's wrong?" Mia demanded, stepping inside and kicking off her sneakers. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Emily's voice cracked as she spilled the truth, words tumbling out in a frantic rush. "Ethan's cheating, with Sasha, his assistant. But it's worse, Mia. They're after my inheritance. I heard them plotting tonight, like I'm some pawn they can sacrifice." Mia's jaw dropped, then tightened into a fierce line. "That bastard," she hissed, pacing the room like a caged lioness. "And Sasha? She's been gunning for a piece of his world since she showed up. I dug into her once. Grew up dirt poor in Oakland, bounced between foster homes. She's not just after his bed. She wants his throne. But your inheritance? That's low, even for him." Emily sank onto the couch, her head in her hands. "It's $5 million, Mia. My dad's legacy. He left it to me so I'd always have something of my own, no matter what. Ethan knows how much it means to me. How could he do this?" Mia crouched beside her, gripping her shoulders. "Because he's greedy, Em. Success turned him into a monster who thinks everything, including you, is his to control. And Sasha, she's been clawing for a win her whole life. Ethan's her golden ticket, and she'll burn anyone to get it. But we're not letting them win. What's this project they're talking about?" "I don't know," Emily admitted, her voice small. "He's been cagey about work lately, late nights, locked doors. I thought it was just stress, but now—" She trailed off, dread pooling in her stomach like ice water. Mia's eyes narrowed, a spark of determination flaring. "Then we dig. I've got contacts, tech insiders, financial bloggers. If Ethan's hiding something, I'll sniff it out. But you've got to decide what you're fighting for. Are you saving your marriage or your freedom? The question hit Emily like a thunderclap. She'd spent years molding herself into Ethan's perfect wife, dimming her light to let his shine brighter. But freedom? That word sparked a longing she'd buried long ago, a hunger for the woman she used to be. Both, she whispered, her voice trembling with newfound fire. I want him to pay, and I want me back. Mia grinned, fierce and proud. That's my girl. First, we need evidence. Check his office, emails, files, anything. I'll start asking around. The next morning, Ethan left for a business brunch. His goodbye, a distracted peck on Emily's cheek that left her skin crawling. Sasha's perfume lingered in his wake, jasmine and ambition, a scent that turned Emily's stomach. She waited until his Tesla purred out of the garage, then slipped into his study, her heart pounding like a war drum. The room was a fortress of modern wealth, a glass desk, a wall of awards, a laptop humming softly. Emily hesitated, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. This was a line she'd never crossed, invading his privacy, but he'd shattered hers first. She typed his password, Brooks Tech 2020, predictable as ever, and held her breath as the screen unlocked. Emails flooded her vision, a chaotic sea of business jargon. She scrolled, her pulse racing, until a subject line snagged her gaze. Project Eclipse, funding secured? Sent from Sasha 2 days ago. Emily clicked, and the words leaped out like venomous fangs. Ethan, the transfer docs are ready. Once we move Emily's trust into the shell company, Eclipse launches next quarter. She'll never trace it. Too busy moping. Dinner tonight to celebrate? S. Emily's breath hitched, fury surging through her veins like wildfire. Project Eclipse, a tech startup cloaked in secrecy, funded by her money. A shell company? They weren't just taking her inheritance. They were burying it, erasing her from the equation. She scrolled further, finding a draft contract with her forged signature, dated for next week. The audacity seared her soul, but the betrayal cut deeper still. Her phone buzzed. Mia. I've got something. Meet me at the Bean on Sunset in an hour. Emily printed the email, her hands shaking with rage, and tucked it into her bag. She arrived at the cozy coffee shop, its walls lined with quirky art, and spotted Mia at a corner table, her laptop open. Mia's face was grim as she slid a flash drive across the table. You're not gonna like this, she warned. Emily plugged it into her phone, her heart sinking as grainy photos loaded. Ethan and Sasha at a rooftop bar, his arm slung around her waist. A blurry shot of them entering a sleek office labeled Eclipse HQ. Then, a voice recording. Mia's source had caught Sasha bragging. Ethan's wife is clueless. Once we lock down her funds, I'm set for life. I'll never go back to scraping by. The world tilted. Emily gripped the table, her nails digging into the wood. They're not just stealing from me, she rasped, tears of fury stinging her eyes. They're laughing about it, planning a future on my ruins. Sasha's rewriting her past with my money. Mia leaned forward, her voice steel. They think you're weak, Em, but they're wrong. You've got proof now. Use it. Hit them where it hurts. Emily stared at the photos, the email, the contract. Each piece was a shard of betrayal, but together they forged a weapon. She thought of Ethan's smug grin, Sasha's taunting laugh, and the life they'd planned without her. No more. The timid wife they'd mocked was dead, buried beneath a rising tide of vengeance. I'm done hiding, Emily said, her voice low and lethal. I'm going to burn their little empire to the ground. Mia's eyes gleamed. That's the spirit. What's the plan? Emily's lips curved into a dangerous smile, her mind racing with possibilities. I start by taking back what's mine. Every dime, every dream. Then I make them regret ever crossing me. The storm was brewing, and Emily Carter was its lightning. The Los Angeles dawn spilled golden light across Emily Carter's art studio, illuminating the chaos of her past, a graveyard of abandoned canvases and dried-up dreams. She stood in the center, her reflection caught in a cracked mirror. Tangled hair, hollow eyes, a woman who'd let herself fade into Ethan's shadow. But today, That woman was gone. Today, Emily felt a spark ignite deep within her, a blazing ember of defiance that refused to be snuffed out. She wasn't just fighting for her inheritance anymore. She was fighting for her soul, and her art would be her sword. Mia had stayed late the night before, the two of them hunched over coffee-stained notes and the damning evidence of Ethan's betrayal. The email, the photos, the forged contract. They were grenades, and Emily was ready to pull the pins. But Mia had insisted on more than just revenge. "You need to show them who you are, Em," she'd said, her voice fierce. "Not the broken wife they expect, but the unstoppable artist they forgot, the one who painted her heart into every canvas." That morning, Emily made a call, not to Ethan, not to Sasha, but to Julian Voss, a celebrity stylist who'd once begged to dress her for an art gala back in her college days. At 40, Julian was a whirlwind of charisma, his silver-streaked hair and sharp blue eyes commanding every room he entered. He arrived at the penthouse within an hour, his arms laden with garment bags, his grin wide and wicked. "Darling, you've been hiding this light far too long," Julian declared, circling Emily like a sculptor assessing clay. "We're not just dressing you up, we're unleashing you." He pulled out a crimson silk dress, its fabric shimmering like liquid fire. Emily hesitated, her fingers brushing the smooth material. "I haven't worn anything like this in years," she murmured, doubt flickering in her chest. Julian tilted her chin up, his gaze piercing. "That's exactly why you will now. This isn't about Ethan or that vixen Sasha. This is about Emily Carter reclaiming her throne." The transformation began. Julian's team swept in. A hairstylist who tamed her chestnut waves into a cascade of glossy curls. A makeup artist who painted her lips a bold scarlet and dusted her eyelids with gold. Emily watched in the mirror as the tired wife dissolved, replaced by a vision of raw power. Her curves hugged by the dress, her posture straighter, her eyes blazing with a ferocity she'd forgotten she possessed. When Julian slipped a pair of sleek black stilettos onto her feet, she didn't just stand. She soared. But beauty alone wouldn't win this war. Emily needed a plan, a blade sharp enough to cut through Ethan's lies and Sasha's arrogance. She met Mia again that afternoon at a rooftop cafe overlooking the glittering sprawl of LA. The wind tugged at Emily's new curls as she laid out the evidence on the table, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside. "I've got a lawyer," she said, sliding a business card across to Mia. "Rebecca Lang. She's a shark in divorce and fraud cases. She's already drafting an injunction to freeze any transfer of my trust fund." Mia whistled, impressed. "Smart move. But Ethan's slippery. He'll have excuses lined up. What's your endgame?" Emily leaned forward, her eyes glinting with resolve. "The art exhibit next week. Ethan's hosting it to schmooze investors for Project Eclipse. I'll be there. Not as his arm candy, but as the star. I'm showing my new piece, and when the room's packed with LA's elite, I'll expose them." So, Mia's jaw dropped, then curved into a grin. "You're painting again?" That's genius. Hit them with art and truth. What's the piece?" Emily's smile was sharp, dangerous. "It's called Eclipse of Trust, a canvas of shattered gold and black, with their emails and that forged signature woven into the design. Each stroke pulls me back from the abyss they pushed me into. They'll see it, and then I'll make sure everyone else does too." Over the next 6 days, Emily threw herself into her work with a fury she hadn't felt in years. The studio became her battlefield, paint splattering like blood as she poured her pain onto the canvas. Each stroke was a scream, a heartbeat reclaiming her spirit. Gold for the wealth they'd tried to steal, black for the betrayal that stained her heart. She painted late into the night, her hands trembling, not from exhaustion, but from the raw power surging through her. The act of creation wasn't just art, it was resurrection, a lifeline pulling her from the wreckage of her marriage. She barely slept, fueled by adrenaline and the bittersweet thrill of rediscovery, her hands now dancing with a purpose she'd thought lost forever. Mia worked in tandem, digging deeper into Project Eclipse. She uncovered whispers from her tech contacts. Ethan and Sasha had pitched it as a revolutionary AI platform, but the funding was shaky, hence their desperate grab for Emily's trust. Mia even tracked down a whistleblower, a junior developer, who'd quit after spotting irregularities in the books. "They're cooking numbers," he'd told Mia over a burner phone. "If it flops, Ethan's ruined." Emily absorbed every detail, her mind spinning with possibilities. She met Rebecca Lang in a sleek downtown office, the lawyer's cool gray eyes assessing her with quiet respect. "You've got a solid case," Rebecca said, tapping the evidence pile. "Fraud, forgery, emotional distress. We can bury them. But this exhibit stunt? It's bold, risky. You sure you're ready?" "I've never been more ready," Emily replied, her voice ironclad. "They think I'm a ghost they can ignore. I'll haunt them instead." Rebecca smirked. "Then let's make it airtight. I'll have subpoenas ready as backup." The night before the exhibit, Emily stood alone in the penthouse, the crimson dress hanging like a battle flag in her closet. She'd moved her painting to the venue earlier that day, hidden under a tarp until the big reveal. Ethan had been distant all week, his texts curt and his excuses flimsy. Late meetings, investor dinners. She'd caught Sasha's voice in the background once, a smug lilt that set her teeth on edge. They had no idea the storm was coming. She walked to the mirror, tracing her reflection with a trembling finger. The woman staring back wasn't the sloppy wife they'd dismissed. She was a phoenix, reborn from ashes of neglect. Her heart pounded with a cocktail of fear and exhilaration, but beneath it pulsed a steely certainty. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about redemption, a reclaiming of the artist she'd buried under Ethan's shadow. Mia dropped by, her arms full of takeout tacos and a bottle of tequila. "Fuel for the warrior," she teased, pouring shots. They clinked glasses, the sharp burn of liquor sealing their pact. "Tomorrow, you're not just taking back your money," Mia said, her eyes fierce. "You're taking back your life." Emily nodded, the tequila igniting her resolve. "They thought they could bury me, but I'm the one who'll bury them." The next morning, she woke to a text from Ethan. "See you at the exhibit. Wear something nice." The irony almost made her laugh. She slipped into the crimson dress, its silk clinging to her like armor, and added a choker of black pearls, a subtle nod to the darkness she'd overcome. Her heels clicked against the penthouse floor as she grabbed her bag, the weight of her plan settling over her like a crown. Outside, Los Angeles shimmered under a relentless sun, oblivious to the reckoning brewing in its heart. Emily stepped into her car, a sleek convertible she'd bought with her own money years ago, and let the wind whip through her curls as she drove to the venue. The exhibit hall loomed ahead, a glass and steel monument to wealth and ambition. Inside, Ethan and Sasha waited, smug and unsuspecting, their empire teetering on the edge of collapse. Emily's lips curved into a defiant smile. Let them bask in their arrogance a little longer. Soon, they'd see her, not as a victim, but as a force they'd never outrun. The phoenix was rising, and she'd bring their world crashing down. The exhibit hall pulsed with the hum of Los Angeles elite, tech tycoons, Hollywood influencers, and art collectors draped in designer threads. Crystal chandeliers cast a radiant glow over the sleek space, their light dancing off champagne flutes and polished marble floors. Emily Carter stepped through the glass doors, the crimson silk of her dress flowing like molten lava, her black pearl choker glinting like a warrior's talisman. Her heart thundered, a wild drumbeat of nerves and fury, but her chin stayed high, her gaze razor-sharp. Tonight wasn't just an exhibit, it was a battlefield, and she was armed to the teeth. Ethan Brooks stood near the center of the room, his tailored black suit hugging his broad frame, his hazel eyes scanning the crowd with practiced charm. Beside him, Sasha Vega shimmered in a silver gown that clung to her like a second skin, her jet-black hair swept into an elegant updo. They laughed with a cluster of investors, their voices a symphony of arrogance, oblivious to the storm brewing in Emily's shadow. She clutched the edge of her clutch bag, where the printed emails and forged contract lay hidden, her ammunition for the kill shot. The massive canvas of Eclipse of Trust loomed under a black tarp at the far end of the hall, its presence a silent promise of chaos. Emily had slipped in earlier to ensure every detail was perfect. The emails and forged signature subtly etched into the artwork, a secret weapon disguised as art. She caught Mia's eye across the room. Her friend gave a subtle nod from beside a photographer, her auburn curls bouncing with barely contained excitement. Rebecca Lang, the lawyer, lingered near the exit, her steely gaze a quiet assurance that legal backup was ready if things spiraled. "Ladies and gentlemen," a voice boomed over the speakers, cutting through the chatter. Ethan stepped onto a small stage, his grin wide and dazzling. "Welcome to the Brooks Foundation Art Exhibit. Tonight, we celebrate creativity and a little teaser for Project Eclipse, the future of tech innovation." The crowd erupted in applause, their adoration fueling his ego. Sasha joined him, her hand brushing his arm with possessive ease, her smirk daring anyone to challenge her reign. Emily's stomach churned, but she swallowed the bile, her resolve hardening into steel. She moved through the throng, her heels clicking like a countdown, until she stood just feet from the stage. Ethan's eyes flickered to her, and for a split second, his mask slipped. Shock rippled across his face, replaced quickly by a strained smile. "Emily," he said, loud enough for the mic to catch. "Didn't expect you to steal the show tonight. You look incredible." Sasha's lips tightened, her green eyes narrowing into venomous slits. "Yes, quite the surprise," she purred, her tone dripping with disdain. "Didn't think you'd crawl out of your little cave." The crowd tittered, some shifting uncomfortably. Emily felt the sting, but it only fanned the flames in her chest. She stepped forward, her voice clear and cutting. "Oh, I wouldn't miss this, Sasha. Not when it's such a big night for all of us." Ethan frowned, sensing the edge in her words, but before he could respond, Emily turned to the audience. "Actually, I have a piece to unveil tonight, a special tribute to trust, and what happens when it's broken." A murmur rippled through the room as she strode to the tarp-covered canvas. Ethan's face paled, his hand twitching towards Sasha as if to stop her. But it was too late. Emily gripped the fabric and yanked it free with a flourish, revealing Eclipse of Trust in all its raw, jagged glory. Gold streaks shattered across a black void, the emails and forged signature woven into the chaos. Readable up close, a whispered accusation to anyone who dared look deeper. Gasps echoed through the hall. Cameras flashed, capturing the moment as Emily faced the crowd, her voice ringing with unshakable strength. "This piece is inspired by my husband and his assistant. See, while I was moping," as Sasha so kindly put it, "they were plotting to steal my inheritance, $5 million my father left me, to fund their precious Project Eclipse." The room exploded into chaos. A grizzled investor in a pinstripe suit muttered, "I'm out," and stormed toward the exit, his glass clinking against a table. A young reporter shouted, "Is this true, Mr. Brooks?" Her recorder thrust forward like a spear. Phones whipped out, recording the unraveling spectacle as whispers turned to roars. Ethan lunged forward, his voice cracking. "Emily, what the hell are you doing? This is insane." "Is it?" she shot back, pulling the printed email from her clutch and holding it high. "This says you and Sasha forged my signature to move my trust into a shell company. Care to explain that to your guests?" Sasha's composure shattered, her face twisting with rage. "You lying bitch! That's fabricated! You're desperate!" Emily's laugh was cold, lethal. "Desperate? No, Sasha. I've got photos, recordings, a whistleblower who says your project's a house of cards. You thought I'd stay quiet while you robbed me blind?" The crowd parted as Mia stepped forward, holding up her phone. "Play it," Emily commanded. Sasha's voice spilled from the speaker, smug and damning. "Ethan's wife is clueless. Once we lock down her funds, I'm set for life. I'll never go back to scraping by." Silence crashed over the hall, heavy and suffocating, broken only by a woman in a sequined gown, gasping, "My God, they're finished!" Ethan's jaw slackened, his empire crumbling in real time. Investors backed away, one barking into his phone, "Pull the funds! Now!" Sasha lunged at Emily, her nails flashing, but Mia intercepted, shoving her back with a fierce glare. "Back off!" Mia snarled. "You're done!" Ethan grabbed the mic, his voice trembling. "This is a misunderstanding. I... I didn't authorize—" "Save it!" Emily snapped, her eyes blazing into his. "You betrayed me, Ethan, not just with her, but with every lie, every secret. You wanted my money? You'll get nothing but regret." A reporter shoved through, her recorder thrust forward. "Mrs. Brooks, are you pressing charges?" Emily turned, her poise unshaken. "Ask my lawyer. I'm here to tell the truth. Let the courts decide the rest." Rebecca Lang stepped into view, her presence a quiet thunderclap. "Subpoenas are filed. Mr. Brooks and Ms. Vega will answer for fraud and forgery. That's all for now." The hall erupted again, a frenzy of shouts and camera clicks. Ethan staggered off the stage, his face ashen, while Sasha stormed toward the exit, her silver gown trailing like a fallen banner. Emily stood tall amid the chaos, her crimson dress a beacon of triumph, her heart pounding with a wild mix of pain and victory. She'd exposed them, not just to the world, but to themselves. As the crowd swarmed, Mia pulled her into a fierce hug. "You did it, Em. They're finished." Emily nodded, tears prickling her eyes. Not of sorrow, but release. "I'm not finished," she whispered. "I'm just beginning." The night wasn't over, but the battle was won. Ethan and Sasha's empire lay in ruins, and Emily Carter stood atop the wreckage, a phoenix, unbroken, unstoppable. The exhibit hall faded into a blur of flashing cameras and frenzied voices as Emily Carter stepped out into the cool Los Angeles night. The air kissed her skin, crisp and cleansing, washing away the weight of the chaos she'd unleashed. Her crimson dress still clung to her like a second skin, a bold emblem of the woman she'd become. But her shoulders felt lighter now, unburdened by the lies that had once crushed her spirit. She'd torn Ethan and Sasha's world apart, and in doing so, she'd rebuilt her own. Mia caught up to her on the sidewalk, her auburn curls bouncing as she grinned wide enough to light up the dark. "You were a freaking hurricane in there, Em," she said, pulling Emily into a tight, triumphant hug. "They didn't stand a chance." Emily smiled, a soft curve of her lips that held both exhaustion and pride. "I didn't either once, but I'm not that woman anymore." The next morning, the headlines screamed across every LA outlet. "Tech mogul's fraud exposed at gala," and "Artist wife turns tables in stunning reveal." Photos of Emily beside eclipse of trust dominated the front pages, her fiery gaze immortalized in print. Ethan's empire teetered. Investors pulled out, stocks plummeted, and whispers of lawsuits buzzed like hornets. Sasha vanished from the spotlight, her silver gown a forgotten relic of her shattered ambitions. Emily didn't gloat. She didn't need to. The victory wasn't in their downfall. It was in her rise. She spent the day at Rebecca Lang's office, signing papers to secure her inheritance, her pen gliding with a quiet strength. "They won't touch a cent," Rebecca assured her, her gray eyes glinting with approval. "And with the evidence, fraud charges are pending. You've got them cornered." Back at the penthouse, Emily packed a single suitcase, not for Ethan's sake, but for her own. She wouldn't stay in this gilded cage, its walls steeped in betrayal. She'd rented a loft downtown, a sunlit space with bare walls begging for her art. As she folded the crimson dress into the case, her phone buzzed. Ethan's name flashed on the screen, and for a moment, her heart stuttered, an echo of the love she'd once felt. She answered, her voice steady. "What do you want, Ethan?" "Emily, please," he rasped, his tone raw with desperation. "I'm sorry. I'm so damn sorry. I lost myself in all this. Sasha, the money, the ambition. But I see you now, Em. The real you. And it kills me that I didn't before. Can we talk? Just us? She closed her eyes, picturing the man who'd spun her around their tiny apartment, his laughter bright and unguarded. That Ethan was a ghost now, drowned by the greed of the millionaire he'd become. Yet his voice trembled with a sincerity she hadn't heard in years, a crack in his polished armor. "You see me now because I forced you to," she said softly, her words laced with pain. "You betrayed me, Ethan, not just with her, but with every lie you buried me under." His breath hitched, a ragged sound that tugged at her resolve. "I ended it with Sasha the second it blew up. I've been staring at the wreckage of my life, and all I want is you back. Therapy, transparency. I'll do anything. I love you, Em. I always have, even when I was too blind to show it." Her chest ached, a tender bruise of lingering affection warring with the steel she'd forged within. She saw his struggle, the man who'd built an empire now humbled, grasping for redemption, but love wasn't a bandage for broken trust. "I believe you feel it now," she replied, her voice firm yet gentle. "But love isn't enough when trust is ashes. I'm not saying never, Ethan. I just need to find me first, without you defining it." She hung up, tears prickling her eyes, not for him alone, but for the woman she'd been, the one who'd begged for scraps of his attention. That Emily was gone, burned away in the fire of her rebirth. Days turned to weeks. Emily settled into her loft, her paintbrush dancing across fresh canvases, each stroke a reclaiming of her soul. The art world buzzed about her again. Galleries called, collectors clamored, her name a whisper of resilience. Mia visited often, their laughter filling the space with warmth, a reminder that she wasn't alone. One evening, as the sun dipped below the skyline, Emily stood on her balcony, a glass of wine in hand. The city sprawled before her, a tapestry of lights and possibilities. Ethan had texted again, "I'm still here if you'll have me." And she hadn't replied. Not yet. Maybe one day she'd weigh his redemption against her newfound freedom, but for now, her heart belonged to herself. She wasn't the sloppy wife anymore, nor the betrayed pawn. She was Emily Carter, artist, survivor, a woman who'd turned betrayal into triumph. The future stretched wide and uncharted, and for the first time in years, she felt ready to chase it.